21. Black R&B legends who were psychopaths. What if I told you that two of the greatest music legends, James Brown and Marvin Gaye, who shaped the sound of an entire generation, were silently battling their own demons? Behind their electrifying performances and chart-topping hits, these icons were struggling with mental health issues, addiction, and personal turmoil. Their stories of fame, genius, and tragedy raise an important question. How often do we ignore the pain behind the applause? Stick with us as we dive deep into the lives of these legends. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence. You won't want to miss this. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke, often referred to as the King of Soul, was a pioneering figure whose music bridged the gap between black gospel and pop music. His smooth, velvet voice captivated audiences around the world, earning him widespread fame and cementing his legacy as one of the most influential figures in American music. His signature hits such as A Change Is Gonna Come, Cupid, and Wonderful World not only defined a genre but became anthems of social change during the civil rights movement. However, behind the voice that could soothe a nation lay a man haunted by personal demons and a tragic fate. Cooke's rise to fame was meteoric. Born in 1931 in Chicago, he began singing gospel music as a child and quickly became a standout in the genre. By the late 1950s, Sam had transitioned into secular music, where he found even greater success, becoming one of the first black artists to break into mainstream pop. His charm, vocal ability, and smooth demeanor helped him navigate the turbulent racial climate of the time, earning him the adoration of fans of all races. But while his professional life flourished, Cooke's personal life was marred by heartbreak and tragedy. The devastating death of his 3-year-old son in a drowning accident in 1963 shattered him. This event is believed to have triggered a downward spiral in Cooke's mental state, leaving him increasingly despondent and erratic. He became paranoid and was reportedly tormented by feelings of guilt and loss. Friends and family witnessed strange behavior, including late-night drives with no clear purpose and conversations that seemed disconnected from reality. Cooke's inner turmoil grew more pronounced as he struggled to cope with the emotional and psychological toll of his personal tragedies. On December 11, 1964, Cooke's life came to a tragic end at the age of 33. He was found shot and killed at a Los Angeles motel, reportedly after a confrontation with the manager. While the incident was ruled as self-defense, many close to Cooke believed his paranoid state and deteriorating mental health contributed to the tragic event. The official story raised more questions than it answered, with some suggesting that Cooke's increasingly erratic behavior may have led to a violent misunderstanding. Despite the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death, Sam Cooke's legacy endures. He remains an icon not only for his groundbreaking contributions to music, but also for the troubled genius who never quite found peace in his personal life. His voice, still revered today, resonates as a reminder of both the brilliance and the pain of a soul too fragile for the world he helped shape. Don Covay. Don Covay was a figure in the world of R&B whose talent as both a singer and a songwriter made him a formidable force in the 1960s and 1970s. Born in 1938 in Orangeburg, South Carolina, Covay's career spanned genres, leaving a significant mark in the worlds of soul, blues, and rock. He was known for his distinctive raspy voice and his ability to blend elements of gospel blues and rhythm and blues into a sound that was uniquely his own. Covay's hits such as Mercy, Mercy Seesaw and Chain of Fools proved to be timeless classics, and his songwriting abilities influenced artists such as Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, and the Rolling Stones. However, beneath the surface of Covay's musical genius lay a man who struggled with internal turmoil. Like many of his contemporaries, Covay faced the harsh realities of the music industry, a landscape often riddled with exploitation, personal loss, and mental health struggles. Although Covay was never known for the extreme public behavior seen in some of his peers, his struggles were more subtle and private. He was often described as someone who battled with intense feelings of isolation and frustration, exacerbated by the difficulty of staying relevant in an ever-changing musical landscape. As a man who was always deeply connected to his work, Covey's emotional intensity and personal pain were often channeled into his performances. His music had a raw, emotional quality that conveyed both passion and vulnerability, often reflecting a deep-seated sense of conflict. Though never publicly outspoken about his personal challenges, Covey's relationships with the music industry, along with his own psychological struggles, became more apparent as his career waned. By the 1980s, Covey's star began to fade, and while he continued to perform, his influence in mainstream music had diminished. His personal life, marked by health issues and a growing sense of disenchantment, mirrored his professional decline. He was often left to perform in smaller venues, a far cry from the recognition he once received. Don Covey passed away in 2015, but his music remains an enduring legacy, a testament to a man who poured his pain and passion into every note he sang. Laverne Baker. Laverne Baker, a trailblazer in the world of rhythm and blues, was one of the most powerful voices in the genre during the 1950s. Born in 1932 in Chicago, Illinois, she became an icon in the R&B scene with hits like Tweedledee Jim Dandy and I Cried a Tear. Baker's powerful, soulful voice captivated audiences, and her ability to merge blues with R&B helped set the stage for the emerging rock and roll era. She was a pivotal figure for Black women in music, breaking barriers in a male-dominated industry and inspiring generations of artists who followed in her footsteps. However, behind her soaring success, Baker's life was far from easy. Like many Black female artists of her time, she was subjected to the discriminatory practices and exploitation that were rampant in the music industry. Despite her talent, she faced unfair contracts, underpayment, and a lack of support from record companies that were eager to capitalize on her sound but less interested in fostering her long-term career. As the years went on, Baker's career began to slow. In 1969, after years of fighting with the music industry and facing numerous disappointments, she vanished from the public eye. She retreated from the world of music, seeking refuge on a U.S. military base in the Philippines under a different name, performing only for troops. It was during this time that she reportedly began to unravel emotionally, and she lived in relative isolation, free from the pressures of her past fame. Her disappearance from the public eye was not entirely voluntary, but a reflection of the emotional and psychological toll her life in the industry had taken on her. Though she would occasionally resurface, Laverne Baker never regained the prominence she once held. She eventually returned to the U.S. in the late 1980s, where she lived out the last years of her life. Her final public appearance came in 1990, when she attended the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony in a wheelchair, her voice long silenced by the trials of her career and personal battles. Baker passed away later that year. Laverne Baker's story is one of both triumph and tragedy. She was a voice that once electrified the world, but it was a voice that was too often overlooked and underappreciated. The music industry, quick to embrace her talent, was equally quick to abandon her. Her journey serves as a poignant reminder of the personal cost of fame and the toll that the industry can take on those who give so much to it. Billy Wright. Billy Wright, a pioneering figure in R&B and rock and roll, was an artist whose innovative sound helped shape the landscape of early Black music. Born in 1925 in Oxford, Mississippi, Wright's flamboyant fashion and distinct style made him a notable figure during the 1940s and 1950s. His electrifying voice and on-stage presence earned him the nickname Mr. Personality, and he was considered one of the founding fathers of the rhythm and blues genre. Songs like Teardrops and Danny Boy showcased his ability to merge soulful ballads with early rock and roll influences, paving the way for future legends like Little Richard and Elvis Presley. However, despite his immense talent, Wright's life was overshadowed by a growing sense of paranoia and instability. As he navigated the music scene, which was rife with racial discrimination and exploitation, he became increasingly distrustful of those around him. Friends and family recall how Wright's mental state began to deteriorate in the late stages of his career. He became convinced that he was being watched, with some reports indicating that he believed his family members were spying on him. This paranoia reached its peak during the 1960s, when Wright was reportedly obsessed with surveillance and would go to great lengths to protect himself from what he perceived as external threats. Wright's erratic behavior caused him to retreat from the limelight, and by the mid-1970s, he had withdrawn entirely from public view. He was known to keep his windows locked, refused to let anyone visit without prior approval, and exhibited extreme caution in his daily life. His growing isolation led him to live in seclusion, and he became an elusive figure in the R&B world. In his final years, friends and relatives recall how he spent more time alone, struggling with the deepening grip of paranoia. Billy Wright passed away in 1989, a man whose immense musical talent was overshadowed by his inner torment. His story is a tragic reminder of how mental illness can silently chip away at even the most talented and charismatic individuals. Nolan Porter, often regarded as one of soul music's hidden treasures, is a figure whose powerful voice and captivating music never fully reached the recognition it deserved. Born in 1946 in California, Porter's music had a raw, emotional quality that earned him a small but dedicated following. His single, "Keep On Keeping On," is widely considered a classic influencing not only soul and R&B artists, but also punk rock legends in the UK such as Joy Division. His voice, deep and rich, conveyed both joy and sorrow, making it one of the most unique in soul music during the 1960s and 1970s. Despite his talent, Porter's career faced numerous setbacks, and his personal struggles kept him largely out of the spotlight. His life became a tale of mystery and quiet desperation. In the 1970s, as his musical career faltered, Porter began to retreat from public life, spending most of his time in isolation. The pressures of fame and personal battles led to a severe emotional breakdown in the 1980s when he was found in a state of mental distress, surrounded by incoherent scribbles and showing signs of deep paranoia. He became convinced that people were watching him, and his behavior grew increasingly erratic, leading to a diagnosis of an acute nervous breakdown. Porter's story is one of silent suffering. Though he had the potential to become a much larger figure in the world of soul and R&B, his personal demons kept him from achieving widespread fame. His decline into obscurity was marked by increasingly withdrawn behavior, and by the early 1990s, he was living in near isolation. Porter's music, though beloved by a select few, was overshadowed by his internal struggles, and he never reached the commercial success he deserved. In his final years, Nolan Porter showed up at small community events, but never again performed in the way he had in his youth. His music had always been a means of expression, but as his mental health deteriorated, it became increasingly difficult for him to reconcile the vibrant performer with the broken man he had become. Nolan Porter passed away in 2017, largely forgotten by the mainstream, but forever remembered by those who understood the depth of his musical genius. His legacy serves as a powerful reminder of how mental illness can silently take hold of even the brightest talents, and how the true struggles of an artist can be hidden behind the songs they leave behind. Linda Jones. Linda Jones was a soul and R&B singer whose voice was nothing short of legendary, yet her life was marked by deep personal struggles that were largely invisible to the public. Born in 1944 in Newark, New Jersey, Jones was known for her powerful vocal range and emotional delivery. Hits like "Hypnotized" and "I Can't Stand It" cemented her place as one of the most soulful voices of the 1960s and 1970s. She possessed a rawness in her singing that spoke to the pain and resilience of the human spirit, making her one of the most authentic voices in soul music. However, despite her incredible talent, Jones faced a life filled with personal hardships. She battled severe type 1 diabetes, a condition that not only took a physical toll, but also caused her emotional and psychological strain. The stress of constantly managing her illness alongside the pressures of a demanding career made it difficult for Jones to maintain stability. Friends and family reported that she experienced moments of confusion, forgetfulness, and disorientation, symptoms often linked to the progression of her disease. As her health deteriorated, so did her career. Her busy touring schedule and inconsistent access to proper medical care made it difficult for her to keep up with the demands of being a performer. Despite her declining health, she continued to record and perform, showing immense strength in the face of her suffering. In 1972, after performing at a show in New Jersey, Jones went home and tragically passed away from complications of her illness at the age of just 27. The official cause of death was diabetes-related, but those who knew her understood that it was the emotional exhaustion and isolation that had taken the greatest toll on her. Linda Jones was not just a singer. She was a woman who poured her heart and soul into every note, even as her body betrayed her. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the hidden battles faced by so many artists whose voices filled the airwaves, even as their bodies and minds were struggling in silence. Though she left this world too soon, Linda Jones's music continues to captivate and inspire, her voice forever etched in the annals of soul music. Minnie Riperton. Minnie Riperton was a gifted singer whose voice transcended the limits of human vocal range, becoming a symbol of beauty, grace, and heartbreaking vulnerability. Born in 1947 in Chicago, Riperton's talent was apparent from a young age. She gained fame with her stunning hit, "Lovin' You," which showcased her extraordinary whistle register of vocal technique that allowed her to reach breathtakingly high notes seemingly suspended in time. Her ability to evoke emotion with a single note made her one of the most unique voices in the history of soul and pop music. However, beneath the angelic voice and radiant smile lay a woman who struggled deeply with mental health and the realities of a terminal illness. Riperton's career took off in the 1970s, but with fame came an increasing toll on her mental well-being. Riperton was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1976, just as she was at the peak of her success. The physical challenges of her diagnosis soon intertwined with emotional and psychological struggles as she faced the harsh realities of a life-threatening illness while attempting to maintain her career. As her health declined, Riperton's mental state began to show signs of strain. She experienced insomnia and often expressed feelings of dread, believing something was weighing heavily on her heart. She described feeling as though she was being haunted by the invisible, and during one recording session, she even confessed to hearing the voices of the dead. Those closest to her were torn between supporting her as an artist and providing the emotional care she needed. Riperton's mental anguish was compounded by the demands of her career and the pressures of living up to the standards she had set for herself in the public eye. Minnie Riperton passed away in 1979, just 31 years old, leaving behind a legacy of music that continues to resonate with audiences around the world. In her final moments, she was surrounded by family, yet her mind was still occupied with the emotional and psychological weight of her condition. Although she battled with severe mental health issues and the devastating effects of breast cancer, Minnie Riperton's impact on music remains undiminished. Her voice, ethereal and haunting, is a testament to the strength it took for her to continue performing, even as her body betrayed her. Riperton's story is not only one of incredible talent, but also one of the painful intersection between artistic brilliance and personal suffering. Her music continues to inspire, reminding us of the hidden depths of emotion and vulnerability that are often carried by those who create art that touches our hearts. Minnie Riperton's life may have been tragically short, but her voice, a rare gift to the world, lives on as a reminder of the silent battles fought by many artists who never fully reveal the extent of their suffering. Major Lance. Major Lance was once the golden boy of Chicago soul music. Born in 1939 in Chicago, he rose to fame in the 1960s with hits like Monkey Time and His smooth voice and infectious energy made him a favorite among soul music lovers, and his music was a staple on the charts. With his unique blend of rhythm and blues, Lance carved out a significant place in the early soul movement, earning the adoration of fans and peers alike. His dynamic performances paired with his catchy tunes cemented his status as one of the most promising stars of the genre. However, Major Lance's journey to stardom was not without its challenges. Behind the public persona of a confident, charismatic performer lay a man struggling with the pressures of fame and personal turmoil. As his career began to fade in the 1970s, Lance's life took a tragic turn. Industry support waned, and his popularity diminished. The once vibrant soul singer found himself relegated to smaller venues, performing for fewer and fewer people. But it wasn't just the fading popularity that affected Lance, it was the isolation and inner struggles he faced as his career slipped into obscurity. By the mid-1980s, Lance had become a shadow of the man he once was. He lived alone in a rundown apartment in Atlanta with no phone, television, or even a bed, just a wooden chair and a broken answering machine that played the same message repeatedly. His mental health deteriorated, and family members recalled disturbing signs of his disconnect from reality. He was often found sitting on his front porch talking to people who weren't there, seemingly rehearsing stage banter to an invisible audience. His decline into mental isolation reflected the haunting and often forgotten side of fame. In his final years, Lance's story became one of quiet despair. At a charity event, he was invited to sing, but when he took the stage, he froze, unable to remember the words to his own songs. A single whispered question. Who was I? Captured the essence of his silent struggle. Major Lance's life did not end with the spectacular fade of a star. Instead, he vanished into the shadows, his name barely mentioned in the annals of music history. His story remains a poignant reminder of the isolation that often comes with fame, the emotional toll that artists can endure, and how some legends simply fade away in the silence of forgotten memories. Howard Tate. Howard Tate's voice was once described as one of the most soulful and emotionally charged in R&B music, capable of stirring deep feelings in his listeners. Born in 1939 in Macon, Georgia, Tate's raw, bluesy voice and gut-wrenching performances made him an integral figure in the soul music scene during the 1960s. His hit songs like Get It While You Can and Ain't Nobody Home struck a chord with audiences, earning him recognition as one of the great talents of his era. Tate's vocal ability was compared to that of legends like Otis Redding and Sam Cooke, making him a standout in a field filled with giants. Despite his immense talent, Howard Tate's life and career were marred by personal tragedy and a battle with inner demons. In 1976, the death of his daughter in a car accident devastated him. This loss shattered something deep inside Tate, and it was clear that the pain from this event would forever alter his life. After her death, Tate withdrew from the public eye, disappearing from the music scene entirely. Rumors swirled about his whereabouts, with some believing he had gone into hiding, while others thought he was living a quiet, anonymous life. Years later, it was revealed that Tate had been living in near obscurity, reportedly in an abandoned church and working odd jobs. He became a ghost of his former self, haunted by the grief of losing his daughter. Yet despite the overwhelming sadness that had taken hold of him, Tate's love for music never truly faded. His story took a surprising turn in the 1990s when a music producer discovered him performing again. Tate, now in his 50s, was offered the chance to record and tour once more, and he seized the opportunity to release new material. However, his return to the stage was bittersweet. Though he recorded a final album, the spark that had made him such a compelling performer in his youth had long since dimmed. His music, though still imbued with soul and depth, now carried an undeniable sadness. His voice was powerful, but it was clear that the joy he once brought to audiences had been replaced by a quiet longing. Howard Tate passed away in 2011, leaving behind a legacy of music that spoke to the pain and heartache he endured throughout his life. Howard Tate's story is one of profound talent and unbearable loss. It is a tale of an artist who gave his all to music, but was ultimately consumed by grief. His legacy is marked by his ability to channel his pain into his music, creating soulful, heartfelt songs that resonate with anyone who has experienced loss. In a world that often overlooks the struggles of those who entertain us, Tate's life serves as a reminder of the emotional toll fame and personal tragedy can take on even the most gifted individuals. Millie Jackson. Millie Jackson, known for her bold and unapologetic approach to music, was a force to be reckoned with in the world of soul and R&B. Born in 1944 in the segregated South, Jackson's career took off in the early 1970s, earning her recognition as one of the most provocative and outspoken figures in music. Her songs like Caught Up the Storm and If I Had to Do It All Over Again were famous for their raw, unfiltered lyrics, often dealing with themes of love, betrayal, and empowerment. She didn't shy away from confronting uncomfortable topics from infidelity to female sexuality, creating a niche that resonated with audiences looking for music that was both honest and audacious. Her no-holds-barred approach to songwriting made her an iconic figure in soul music, but it also brought with it personal challenges. Behind the scenes, Jackson struggled with emotional instability and the pressures of fame. Her bipolar disorder, which was not publicly diagnosed until later in her life, became an increasingly difficult factor as she juggled her career and personal life. In the late 1970s, Jackson was asked to undergo psychiatric evaluations due to her erratic behavior, including unpredictable mood swings and emotional outbursts. Despite the challenges, she always stood her ground, famously stating, "If I didn't feel this deeply, I couldn't write like I do." Her ability to transform her pain and struggles into her art was both her strength and her curse. While she was known for her powerful voice and unrelenting personality, Jackson's public and private lives often collided. The very traits that made her a success on stage, her intensity, her willingness to express her raw emotions, also led to her battles with self-doubt and fears of not being enough. As her career went on, her appearances became more sporadic, and she withdrew from the public eye, choosing to live a quieter life. Yet even in seclusion, Millie Jackson remained a cultural icon. Her music continued to influence generations of artists and listeners alike. Millie Jackson's legacy is one of resilience. While she often felt misunderstood and dismissed by the mainstream, her impact on music and pop culture is undeniable. Her story is a testament to the strength of an artist who, despite battling mental health struggles, found a way to express herself authentically. Jackson's unapologetic voice continues to resonate, reminding us of the complexity behind the persona and the emotional depth required to create music that speaks to the heart. Betty Davis. Betty Davis, the funk legend, was a trailblazer who defied expectations and challenged the status quo in ways that few artists ever dared. Born Betty Mabry in 1945 in Durham, North Carolina, she was a musical prodigy from an early age. Davis was not just a singer. She was a revolutionary figure in funk music, incorporating raw sexuality, boldness, and unapologetic self-expression into her sound. She was known for her fiery performances and experimental music, which fused rock, funk, and soul. Hits like If I'm in Luck, I Might Get Picked Up, Nasty Gal, and Shameless established her as one of the most innovative voices in music during the 1970s. However, despite her fierce presence on stage and her undeniable talent, Davis's career took a sudden and unexplained turn. Her bold, sexually liberated image was too much for the mainstream music industry to handle at the time, and it led to her being rejected by the very system that had once embraced her. Davis faced a backlash, particularly in the wake of her highly sexualized public persona and her refusal to conform to the traditional expectations placed on women in music. This rejection from the music industry was compounded by her mental health struggles, which were often ignored or misunderstood during her time. In the years following her departure from the spotlight, Davis withdrew from the public eye completely. Some say she retreated to a farm in the countryside, while others speculate she disappeared due to emotional exhaustion or personal issues. By the mid-1970s, Davis had effectively vanished, leaving behind only 3 groundbreaking albums. Despite this, her influence on future generations of musicians was immense. Artists like Prince Erykah Badu and Janelle Monáe would later cite Davis as a major influence in their work. Davis's music, although often shunned in her own time, eventually garnered a cult following, and in recent years her role as a pioneer of funk music has been more widely recognized. But her story remains one of tragedy and resilience. Betty Davis's fierce independence, innovative musical contributions, and refusal to be confined by societal norms left an indelible mark on the genre. Her disappearance into obscurity was not the end of her legacy. It was merely a chapter in the life of a woman who defied convention and lived her truth no matter the cost. Betty Davis's story is not just about music, but about the battles that artists like her often face in their personal lives. She was a star who shone brightly, yet whose struggles with mental health and societal rejection led her to retreat from the very industry that once celebrated her. Her story is a reminder that sometimes the greatest pioneers are the ones whose voices are not heard in their own time, but whose contributions continue to shape the future. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson, often referred to as Mr. Excitement, was one of the most electrifying performers in R&B history. Born in 1934 in Detroit, Michigan, Wilson's dynamic stage presence and powerful voice made him a trailblazer in the world of soul and pop music. His hits, including Lonely Teardrops, Reet Petite, and Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher and Higher, not only captivated audiences, but helped lay the groundwork for the Motown sound and later artists like Michael Jackson. Known for his acrobatic stage performances, Wilson was a consummate entertainer, effortlessly blending soul pop and gospel influences into his music. Wilson's career was a meteoric rise filled with chart-topping hits and unforgettable performances. However, behind his dazzling public persona, Wilson's personal life was fraught with emotional and psychological turmoil. Despite his success, Wilson battled issues with paranoia, depression, and overwhelming stress. Friends and colleagues described him as being haunted by the pressures of fame, and his behavior became increasingly erratic. He began exhibiting signs of mental instability, including emotional outbursts and paranoid delusions. One of the most tragic moments of Wilson's life came in 1975 when he collapsed on stage during a performance in New Jersey. While singing his hit, Lonely Teardrops, Wilson suffered a heart attack which would leave him in a coma for the next 9 years. Though he was physically alive, Wilson was left in a vegetative state, unable to speak or perform. His tragic fall was compounded by years of struggles with addiction and emotional distress, and many close to him believed that the intense pressure of his career and personal life had contributed to his decline. Wilson passed away in 1984 at the age of 49, and his legacy, though immense, was tinged with sadness. The man who had once captivated audiences with his powerful voice and charismatic presence was ultimately defeated by the very fame that made him a household name. Jackie Wilson's life serves as a poignant reminder of the emotional toll that fame can take, especially when mental health struggles are left unaddressed. His story remains one of tragic brilliance, a man whose music will forever live on but whose personal battles were largely ignored until it was too late. Baby Huey. Baby Huey born. James Thomas was a larger-than-life figure in Chicago soul during the late 1960s, known for his impressive size and powerful voice. Standing at nearly 6'5" and weighing over 300 pounds, Huey was a towering presence both physically and musically. As the frontman for Baby Huey and the Babysitters, he became a local legend, mixing soul, funk, and rock into a sound that was uniquely his own. Tracks like Listen to Me and Hard Times showcased Huey's raw talent and incredible vocal range, blending emotional depth with an infectious energy that made him a standout in the Chicago music scene. Despite his success, Baby Huey's life was marked by deep emotional and mental health struggles. His massive physical presence masked a fragile emotional state that became increasingly apparent as his career progressed. Reports from those who knew him described Huey as a man torn between the public's expectations of him and his own internal battles. Huey was often described as childlike in his demeanor, emotionally vulnerable, and prone to outbursts that were fueled by his paranoia and increasing anxiety. There were reports of him becoming agitated during performances, expressing fears that people were watching him too closely or judging him unfairly. Huey's emotional turmoil was compounded by substance abuse, which exacerbated his paranoia and internal struggles. His erratic behavior often led him to act out in public, further distancing him from the support he needed. One of the most striking moments in his career came during a performance when Huey, overwhelmed by a sense of alienation, shouted, "Are you guys looking at me like I'm a monster?" It was a chilling indication of the deep-seated insecurities and fears that were eating away at him. Tragically, Huey's personal struggles led to his untimely death at the age of 26 in 1970. He was found lifeless in a hotel room surrounded by beer cans and records, a silent testament to a man whose immense talent was overshadowed by the emotional pain he couldn't escape. His death came before he could ever release his debut solo album, and much of his potential was left unrealized. Baby Huey's legacy is marked by his unique sound, but his story is also a heartbreaking reminder of the mental and emotional challenges that many artists face in the spotlight. His struggle with paranoia, addiction, and self-doubt prevented him from fully embracing the fame that his talent deserved. Yet his music continues to resonate, and his voice, raw with emotion, remains a powerful testament to the pain and brilliance of a soul lost too soon. Baby Huey's life is a tragic reminder of how a gentle giant can be swallowed by the very fears and demons that no one else can see. O.V. Wright. O.V. Wright, born in 1939 in Memphis, Tennessee, was one of the most gifted soul singers of his generation. His deep, rich voice and emotional delivery made him a standout in the 1960s and 1970s, particularly within the Southern soul and gospel scene. His powerful tracks like "That's How Strong My Love Is a Nickel and a Nail" and "I'd Rather Be Blind, Crippled and Crazy" showcased his ability to channel pain and heartbreak into his music. Wright's songs were known for their raw honesty and emotional depth, capturing the struggles of love, loss, and longing in a way that resonated deeply with his audience. Despite his incredible vocal talent, O.V. Wright's life was marred by personal turmoil and addiction. Like many great soul artists, Wright's story was one of duality. While his voice soared on stage, his personal life was plagued with instability and addiction. He struggled with alcoholism and drug abuse, which affected both his career and personal relationships. As his popularity began to wane in the mid-1970s, Wright's mental and emotional health deteriorated further. His dependency on substances took a toll on his ability to perform and record consistently, and his decline was exacerbated by depression and a sense of isolation. Wright's career was marked by frequent relapses and bouts of emotional distress, leaving him in and out of the music scene. He never truly regained the mainstream success he once had, and his struggles with addiction and mental illness only became more pronounced as he withdrew from public life. Tragically, O.V. Wright died in 1980 at the age of 41 from complications related to his health problems, including drug abuse. His death marked the end of a promising career cut short, leaving behind a legacy of incredible soul music that many consider underrated and misunderstood in his time. Despite the tragic ending to his life, O.V. Wright's music endures as a testament to the power of his voice and the emotional depth of his art. His struggles with addiction and depression reflect a common yet often overlooked issue within the music industry, where mental health problems can go unnoticed while an artist's talent is celebrated. Wright's life serves as a reminder that even the most soulful voices can be silenced by the personal battles they face behind the scenes. Florence Ballard. Florence Ballard is one of the most tragic and overlooked figures in the history of soul music. As a founding member of the Supremes, she was a vital part of the group's early success. Born in 1943 in Detroit, Michigan, Ballard helped form the group that would go on to become one of the most iconic girl groups of all time. Along with Diana Ross and Mary Wilson, Ballard helped create the sound of Motown in the 1960s, contributing her powerful, soulful voice to classics like "Where Did Our Love Go?", "Baby Love," and "Stop," "In the Name of Love." Despite her central role in the Supremes' success, Ballard's journey with the group was fraught with personal and professional struggles. Early in their careers, the Supremes were not the polished, star-studded act they would eventually become. Ballard, as the lead singer in the early days, was seen as a key member, but as Diana Ross began to emerge as the frontwoman, Ballard found herself pushed aside. Her diminishing role in the group caused her immense emotional pain and frustration, especially as she watched Ross take center stage, while her own contributions were overlooked. By the time the Supremes achieved global stardom, Ballard's place in the group was no longer secure. The pressures of being in a successful group, combined with the underlying tension in her relationship with Ross, began to affect her mental health. Ballard's struggles with depression and self-esteem became more evident as the years went on, and in 1967, after a series of personal setbacks and battles with Motown's management, she was replaced by Cindy Birdsong. This sudden departure was a devastating blow to Ballard both personally and professionally, as she had been a founding member of the group and never imagined being pushed out. Ballard's life after leaving the Supremes became marked by a slow decline. Struggling with financial difficulties and emotional pain, she battled with alcoholism and depression. Despite a brief attempt at a solo career, she was unable to regain her former glory. She lived in relative obscurity for many years, far from the spotlight she had once shared with Diana Ross and the rest of the Supremes. In 1976, at the age of 32, Ballard died from a heart attack, brought on by complications related to her years of poor health. Florence Ballard's death was a tragic reminder of the emotional and psychological toll that fame can have on an artist, particularly when they feel neglected and unappreciated. Though she was a pivotal part of the success of the Supremes, her role has often been overshadowed by the group's later fame. It wasn't until after her death that the music world began to more fully acknowledge her contributions to the Motown sound. Today, Ballard is remembered not just for her voice, but for the haunting story of a woman whose struggles were invisible to many, even as she helped create some of the most iconic music in history. Esther Phillips. Esther Phillips was a gifted and powerful voice in the world of soul, jazz, and blues, but her career and personal life were marked by deep emotional struggles and addiction. Born in 1935 in Galveston, Texas, Phillips began her musical career at a young age, earning recognition for her extraordinary vocal talent. At just 14, she recorded Double Crossing Blues, a hit that marked her entry into the music industry. Her early success as a jazz and blues singer placed her among the greats, and her ability to channel raw emotion into her performances made her a standout in her genre. Despite her immense talent, Phillips's life was fraught with personal challenges. She became addicted to drugs at a young age, and this addiction would become the defining struggle of her life. Her battle with substance abuse, including heroin and alcohol, plagued her career and caused her to be in and out of rehabilitation centers throughout the 1960s and 1970s. Her erratic behavior, including moments of freezing on stage or breaking down emotionally, became more frequent as her addiction worsened. While Phillips was known for her fierce and vulnerable voice, she also struggled with a sense of instability that haunted her both on and off stage. Her 1969 live performance at the Fillmore West, where she froze mid-song for nearly a minute, is one of the most famous moments in her career, symbolizing her deep emotional and psychological turmoil. The audience, unsure of what to make of the silence, watched as Phillips fought to regain composure, making the performance all the more poignant. Despite her struggles, Phillips continued to perform and record, reinventing herself with each new album. In the 1970s, she transitioned to a more soul-oriented sound, recording some of her most successful work, including the hit What a Difference a Day Makes in 1975. However, her personal battles continued to overshadow her professional achievements. By the time Phillips passed away in 1984 at the age of 48, she had been through years of pain and recovery, her voice still carrying the marks of her tumultuous life. Esther Phillips's legacy lives on through her incredible voice, which managed to transcend the depths of her personal struggles. Her music remains a testament to her resilience, an expression of a woman who gave the world everything she had, even when she was falling apart behind the scenes. Her story reminds us that behind the beauty of an artist's voice may lie the greatest of personal battles. James Carr. James Carr, known for his soulful voice that resonated with raw emotion and heartbreak, was one of the most influential yet tragically overlooked soul singers of his time. Born in 1942 in Mississippi, Carr's voice was often compared to that of Sam Cooke, with its emotional intensity and ability to convey deep pain through music. His hits such as The Dark End of the Street and A Woman's Way became anthems for soul music lovers, capturing the complexities of love and loss in a way few artists could match. His ability to tap into the deepest recesses of his emotions made his music universally relatable and timeless. However, Carr's life was not as smooth as his vocal delivery. Behind the scenes, he was struggling with a battle far more difficult than any he would face on stage. At a young age, Carr was diagnosed with schizophrenia, a condition that would impact every aspect of his life, including his music career. While his performances were legendary, his mental illness slowly began to take over, leading to confusion, paranoia, and an increasing detachment from reality. Carr's schizophrenia caused him to struggle with hallucinations and delusions, and friends reported that he sometimes heard voices during recording sessions or while performing. These episodes made it increasingly difficult for him to maintain consistent work and led to his gradual disappearance from the music scene. In 1979, during a performance in Japan, Carr had a breakdown on stage. While singing his powerful ballad, The Dark End of the Street, he suddenly collapsed, shouting, "Don't hurt me anymore," as the crowd looked on in shock. It was clear that Carr was no longer able to control his mental health in a way that would allow him to perform at the level he once did. After the incident, his career began to fade, and he retreated from the public eye, plagued by the illness that had begun to take over his life. Carr's battle with mental illness continued in relative obscurity. He spent much of his later years living in isolation, suffering from the effects of his schizophrenia. His struggles with drugs and his worsening mental health led to a long period of silence, both musically and personally. James Carr passed away in 2001 at the age of 58, his legacy unfulfilled, and his life tragically cut short by the very condition that once gave his music such depth. Carr's story is one of unfulfilled potential and tragic brilliance. His soulful voice captured the agony of love and loss, yet it was a reflection of his own inner torment. The music world never fully realized the extent of his struggles, and in the end, he was another soul silenced by a mental illness that overshadowed his incredible talent. His life serves as a powerful reminder of the invisible struggles that many artists face and the need for greater understanding and support for mental health in the entertainment industry. James Carr's music endures, but so too does the sadness of a man who, despite his genius, could not overcome his personal battles. Little Willie John, born in 1937 in Cullendale, Arkansas, was one of the most powerful and influential voices in the early days of R&B and blues, whose raw emotion and intense passion made him a standout figure in the genre. His most famous hit, Fever, became an iconic song that would be covered by countless artists, including Peggy Lee, but John's original version carried a soul-stirring intensity that set it apart. Known for his fiery voice and fiery temperament, he brought a level of emotional depth to his performances that made his music unforgettable. However, John's career, while short, was marked by turbulent personal battles and a struggle with anger and paranoia. His ability to convey profound emotional pain in his music mirrored the turmoil he was experiencing in his personal life. His intense on-stage presence often spilled over into his personal interactions, where he was described as having a volatile temper and struggling with bouts of rage. John's reputation as a powerful force in the R&B world was shadowed by his battles with his inner demons, and as his fame grew, so did his personal struggles. In 1964, after a violent confrontation in a bar that ended in the death of a man, John found himself in prison, where he would serve time for manslaughter. Even in jail, he continued to grapple with his temper and the demons that had haunted him for years. During his time in prison, Little Willie John's health began to deteriorate. His underlying mental health struggles, compounded by his substance abuse, eventually led to his death in 1968 at the age of 30. He passed away from heart failure in a prison hospital just as he was beginning to reclaim his place in the music industry after his release. Though his life was tragically short and filled with inner turmoil, Little Willie John's influence on the world of R&B and soul music is undeniable. His powerful voice, which conveyed both agony and defiance, left an indelible mark on the genre. His music continues to resonate not just for its brilliance, but for the struggles he faced both in his career and in his personal life. John's story remains a tragic reminder of how mental health and emotional distress can shape an artist's journey, often overshadowing their immense talent. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was a soulful genius whose music captured the deep emotional undercurrents of human experience. Born in 1945 in Chicago, Illinois, Hathaway's extraordinary musical talent made him a standout figure in the world of soul, R&B, and jazz. His powerful voice, combined with his exceptional skills as a musician and composer, allowed him to create some of the most emotionally resonant music of the 1970s. His duets with Roberta Flack, including the timeless "Where Is the Love" and "The Closer I Get to You," showcased his ability to blend vulnerability and strength, making him one of the most revered voices in soul music. However, behind the stunning performances and poignant lyrics, Hathaway's life was tragically marked by mental illness. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, Hathaway's battles with his mental health became increasingly apparent as his career progressed. The mental illness that haunted him began to interfere with his work, causing him to struggle with delusions and hallucinations. Hathaway, who had once been known for his infectious energy and charisma, began to show signs of instability during recording sessions and live performances. Friends and collaborators noted that his paranoia was growing more intense, and he became convinced that people were conspiring against him. Hathaway's mental health issues were compounded by the pressures of fame and the toll that constant touring and recording took on his well-being. In 1979, Hathaway's career was derailed by a severe emotional breakdown, and he was hospitalized multiple times in the years leading up to his death. Despite the challenges he faced, Hathaway's talent never waned, and his musical legacy remains one of the most cherished in soul music. His poignant lyrics, emotional depth, and incredible voice continue to inspire generations of artists and fans alike. Sadly, Donny Hathaway's life ended tragically on January 13, 1979, when he fell from the 15th floor of a New York City hotel. His death was ruled a suicide, though some still question the circumstances surrounding it. At the time of his death, Hathaway was just 33 years old, and the world had yet to fully comprehend the magnitude of the talent it had lost. His music, however, lives on as a testament to a man who was not only a brilliant artist, but also a deeply troubled soul. Donny Hathaway's story is one of the greatest tragedies in the history of music. His incredible gifts were overshadowed by the mental health struggles that ultimately claimed his life. His music continues to resonate with fans who understand that behind every note was a man who poured his heart and soul into every performance, even as his mind slowly betrayed him. Hathaway's legacy serves as both a celebration of his musical genius and a somber reminder of the devastating impact of mental illness on even the most gifted individuals. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye, born in 1939 in Washington, D.C., was a musical genius whose career became a beacon of both hope and heartbreak. Known for his smooth, soulful voice, Gaye was one of the most influential figures in the history of R&B and soul music. His groundbreaking albums like What's Going On and Let's Get It On remain timeless classics addressing social and political issues with a depth and sincerity that resonated with audiences across the globe. Gaye's ability to blend themes of love struggle and spirituality made his music unique and incredibly impactful. However, behind his smooth voice and magnetic charm, Marvin Gaye's life was filled with internal battles. Gaye's early life was marked by the trauma of an abusive father who had a violent and controlling presence in Marvin's life. This emotional abuse left deep scars on Gaye and affected his relationships, including his turbulent marriage to Anna Gordy, sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy. Despite the commercial success of his music, Gaye's emotional well-being began to deteriorate in the 1970s as he struggled with severe depression, addiction to drugs, and intense feelings of personal inadequacy. Marvin Gaye's struggles with mental health were compounded by his feelings of dissatisfaction with the music industry. He grew increasingly disillusioned with Motown and sought more creative control over his music, resulting in What's Going On, an album that would change the course of R&B music, but was also deeply personal. His fight for artistic freedom, however, was not enough to shield him from the darkness he felt inside. The climax of Gaye's personal struggles came in 1984, when at just 44 years old, he was tragically shot by his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., in a domestic dispute. Gaye had reportedly attempted to intervene in an argument between his parents, leading to the fatal confrontation. His death marked the end of a brilliant career and an extraordinarily talented life. Marvin Gaye's legacy, though, is eternal. He was a man of great depth and vulnerability whose music reflected the inner turmoil and beauty of his soul. Gaye's voice continues to be one of the most cherished in music, representing not only the civil rights struggles of the era, but also the internal battles that so many artists face in the pursuit of greatness. His story is a reminder that behind the fame and accolades, mental health struggles can quietly destroy even the brightest of stars. James Brown. James Brown, born in 1933 in Barnwell, South Carolina, is an icon whose influence on music and culture is immeasurable. Known as the Godfather of Soul, Brown was one of the pioneers of funk music and revolutionized R&B with his electrifying performances and distinct sound. With hits like I Got You, I Feel Good, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and Sex Machine, Brown reshaped the musical landscape and became a cultural force, inspiring countless artists across genres. His unique approach to rhythm, energy, and showmanship made him one of the most captivating performers in history. However, behind his on-stage persona of invincibility and power, Brown's personal life was marred by intense emotional turmoil and mental health struggles. Brown's rise to fame was not easy, and his life was filled with hardships, including growing up in poverty, experiencing years of abuse, and facing the discrimination of segregation. These early life experiences may have contributed to the deep-seated anger and paranoia that often defined his behavior in later years. As his career reached its peak, Brown's emotional and mental health began to unravel. He was known for his erratic behavior, outbursts of anger, and an almost obsessive need for control. His addiction to drugs and alcohol, coupled with his violent tendencies, caused him to alienate many of his colleagues and friends. On several occasions, Brown was arrested for violent incidents, and he reportedly believed that he was being targeted by the FBI. His paranoia became so severe that on one occasion he barricaded himself inside a hotel room for days, convinced that federal agents were attempting to capture him. James Brown's struggles with his mental health were often overshadowed by his immense influence on the music industry. His desire to maintain his public image of strength led him to mask the deep pain he was experiencing. His increasingly erratic behavior, coupled with his inability to manage his anger, eventually led to the end of his most successful relationships, including his marriages and collaborations with other artists. In 2006, James Brown passed away at the age of 73 from heart failure, but his death was also the culmination of a life marked by self-destruction. While he remained a cultural icon until the end, the man who had given so much to the world of music ultimately struggled to find peace in his own life. James Brown's legacy, however, lives on not just in the music he created, but in the lessons of his personal life. His story is a tragic reminder of how fame, addiction, and mental health issues can overshadow even the greatest of legacies. Brown's struggles should not diminish his contributions to music, but rather encourage deeper conversations about mental health in the entertainment industry, where even the most powerful figures can suffer in silence. James Brown and Marvin Gaye were giants in the world of music, both shaping the landscape of soul, funk, and R&B. However, behind their powerful voices and groundbreaking performances lay deep struggles with mental health, addiction, and personal turmoil. Brown's erratic behavior and Gaye's tragic end are stark reminders of the invisible battles that many artists face. As we celebrate their legacies, we must ask, how often do we overlook the mental and emotional challenges of our greatest talents? What can we do to better support the mental well-being of our icons? Let's discuss. Leave your thoughts below and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence.